Welcome back to SoCal with Val. I am your host, Valerie Van De Zilver, and today we are taking you on a delicious journey across the vineyards of Spain, from Rioja to Ribera del Duero, from the rugged hills of Priorat to the crisp coastal wines of Rías Baixas. Kyle Meyer, our guest, is going to tell me if I pronounce that correctly. Bijas, I think. Spain has something to offer for everyone's palate and every season. And I don't know a lot about Spanish wines, although I'm sure if I've been around the wine exchange long enough, and I have been, I've tasted a few. But joining me today is our friend to this station and this channel, and our favorite wine mind, Kyle Meyer, president and co-owner of the Wine Exchange right here in Southern California. Kyle has tasted more than 80,000 wines, and that's pretty incredible, from around the world, and he has a gift for bringing the stories from the bottles to life. In part one, we're going to explore what has made Spain such a special wine-producing country, the regions, the grapes, and the incredible value that makes the Spanish wine one of the best-kept secrets. And in part two today, we'll bring it back home to SoCal, talking about fall favorites, the cozy, comforting wines that pair perfectly with cooler nights, roasted flavors, and good conversation. So pour yourself a glass, settle in, let's uncork some knowledge, Spanish style, with Kyle Meyer. Welcome, Kyle Meyer, to SoCal with Val.
Great to be back.
We are glad to have you, and thanks for talking to us today about Spanish wines. So can you start out by giving us a big picture overview of why Spain is such a special wine-producing country in terms of history, and the history of Spain, of course, is incredible, geography, diversity of climate, soils, and traditions. So talk to us about Spain.
Well, let's focus on that word big, Valerie. Big. Spain's a big country, and I think it's bigger than anybody in America thinks it is. We see it on a map, but until you get there and you fly and you drive, you realize the expanse of Spain. And then you realize there's premium wine grown in almost every corner of the country.
Whoa.
Some of the most miles I've ever logged in a car visiting wineries have been in Spain.
Really?
It's really remarkable. And the thing is, there's so many different styles of wine produced in Spain. Okay. Now, of course, we're comfortable with a couple brands that have been known in the United States for a number of decades. There's a couple styles of wine or areas that we're familiar with, because, Americans, we don't want that sensory overload. We have a lot going on. We have a lot on our plates. We want to keep it super simple. A deep dive with regards to Spanish wines probably isn't on the menu of even most wine consumers in America, right? But a deep dive is required, to your point, because there is a lot to uncover in Spain. It is a huge area with many different styles of wine. Those styles of wines are increasing by the vintage. The great producers are increasing exponentially. There is so much action in Spain, so much new in an area that people attribute with a traditionally older style of wine. So it's pretty crazy. So long story short, Spain has been growing premium wine, just like, since Roman times. In a lot of these areas, there were Roman outposts set up here, et cetera, et cetera. Let's go back 1,000 years. Let's go back 2,000 years. There's a history of wine there in Spain, just like with Italy, just like with France, like with Germany, these areas that have been long-time outposts for the production of wine. Now, there are many different styles of wine based on your location. Because, see, we associate Spain. What's the first thing you think of, Valerie? For example, when you think of Spain, what's the first thing that pops in your head?
Well, bullfighters. I think of Spanish explorers, right? That's what I think of.
You think, first thing that pops in my head is like Don Quixote.
Right, exactly. With his specific type of hat that he wore, right?
Don Quixote. Windmills, these plains. Yes. And, I'd say a lot of the center part of the country is like that. You know what they call the meseta, this raised plateau of windswept plains. There's garlic production there, but the thing is, all the coasts, all the areas around Spain,
Right.
around the border, covered with wine, right? You can talk about, we can go kind of go clockwise, right? We can start at the top of Spain. We can start at 12 o'clock.
We could.
San Sebastian, the Bilbao, the Basque Country, incredible white wines. And then as you get about an hour into the interior, terrific red wines from Navarra, right? You go a little below that, you have the great wines of Rioja,
Yes.
right? A little west of that, you have the great wines of the Ribera del Duero. You have fabulous white wines from Verdejo in Rioja. You go to like 1 o'clock on the clock, right, in Spain, huh? Now you
Okay.
have Garnacha, Grenache, some of the greatest Grenache on the planet. The ground zero for Grenache, before it was in the Rhone Valley in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, before it was in California, the ground zero for Grenache is in the Calatayud in Aragon, in the northeastern section of Spain.
Okay.
Let's go to 2 o'clock. Now you're in Penedès, Barcelona. You're in Cava country. Some of the best sparkling wines on the planet.
Oh.
You're also in the hills of Priorat, which if anyone's ever been like Yucca Valley or Joshua Tree, imagine going grapes in Yucca Valley or Joshua Tree. This completely
that would be pretty strange. Yeah.
inhospitable climate for grapes that struggle to produce these world-class red wines. You go to 4 o'clock. Now you're in Valencia, huh?
All right.
Valencia,
yes.
Jumilla, Monastrell, the foundational location for Monastrell, what we call Mourvèdre in France, and Mataro. Monastrell, the ground zero, that's where it began. In Valencia, paella.
Paella.
You make your way to 6 o'clock. Now you're in an area where the Moscatel grape, Muscat, got its ancient start. These phenomenal dessert wines made out of the Muscat grape. You go to 7 o'clock. Now you're in sherry country. You're in Sevilla, the home of sherry.
Ooh.
It's there, And all of this is just going around the dial of Spain. So many great wines, so many foundational styles of wine, and it's the ground zero for so many great grape varieties, whether it's Grenache or Tempranillo or Mourvèdre, Monastrell. Their ancient home is Spain. Remarkable.
Amazing. So why does anybody buy wine anyplace else? I guess we'll have to find that out, right?
We're trying to fix that. For almost 30 years, we've been trying to fix that. And it's a great point that you bring up. Why wouldn't you buy Spanish wine? It takes time. It can be confusing. There's new labels. There's new names. There's things that customers aren't familiar with. But what they are familiar with is value. And for 3 decades now, Spain has delivered the most incomparable value wines on the planet.
Well, let's talk about regions. So what are some of the must-knows for someone just diving into Spanish wines?
Number one, you need to know Rioja. Okay. Rioja is the most famous region in Spain. It's a region with a long, storied history. It's a region that really gained its feet, particularly, though, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, because Rioja was this area that, I don't know if we discussed it in our discussions before here on the show, but there was the phylloxera root louse, this little bug, right, that Americans brought to France in the late 1800s, which devastated the French vineyards. It ate all the root systems of all the vines in France. And then France had to replant their vines onto phylloxera-resistant American roots and start over, essentially.
Oh, it's terrible.
It was a horrible time. It was America's fault. We did it. And sorry. But what happened is there's 20, 30 years there, right, where the French were like, we drink like 4 bottles of wine each a day. We need wine. But if all their vineyards are destroyed, where do they go?
Where did they go?
They went to Rioja. So they went, over the Pyrenees, down into Rioja, and set up shop there, and taught the Riojanos at the time how to make super premium wines in the Bordeaux style. This was in the late 1800s. The concept of wood aging, the concept of extended wood aging, the concept in the vineyard work they were doing at the time. All this was taught to the Riojanos in the late 1800s. In the span of a few short years, Rioja became it was like the Silicon Valley of its time in Spain.
Okay, well, we can relate to that.
Right. So it was like after maybe Madrid and maybe Barcelona, it was like the third place to get electricity in Spain.
Oh gosh.
It was the third largest area for banking in Spain. And what the French were doing is they were buying every bucket of Rioja wine, putting it on trains in huge barrels, and then putting those huge barrels on boats, sending them to France, and then selling the wine as French wine.
Well, it's kind of came from France.
Kind of shifty.
After it was, that's like selling fish after it's been frozen, right?
Absolutely. But think about it, late 1800s, who's going to say anything? And
Sure.
the Spaniards were really happy to get the money. It was incredible times. It was a boom time for the Rioja vineyards. But with Rioja, as all things, what happened is as the French got in there and started doing their business, well, of course, the French brought with them the phylloxera, the same root louse.
Oh.
And it attaches itself to shoes, to clothes, etc. And then, of course, starting in the early 1900s, that same root louse started to devastate the Rioja vineyards. At that time, the French had already replanted their vineyards, so they didn't really need the Riojanos anymore, you see?
We don't want them. Take them back.
Yes. Yeah, the Riojanos basically got used for a fair amount of money and then were left to their own devices in the early 1900s.
All right. Okay.
Right. But what happened is they ended up creating their own wine community and expanding the Rioja brand with all this knowledge and money that was actually given to them by the French, right? The French did them right in that respect. And then so Rioja became the first premium wine zone, right, in Spain because of that influx of capital and know-how. And that's why Rioja is the most popular wine producing area in Spain today. Now, one more thing you need to know next door. Well, there's a bunch of, we could go on for hours, but we're going to condense. Next door to Rioja is an area called, well, not next door, it's an hour and change west.
That's kind of close.
The Ribera del Duero, which you mentioned at the start.
Yes.
Now, the Ribera del Duero is the closest high-end wine area to Madrid, right? So if you drive like an hour and a half, no more than 2 hours north of Madrid, you're in the Ribera del Duero.
All righty.
Accordingly, here, like Rioja is a little more yeoman, and Ribera del Duero is a little more shishi. This is where you have your famous producers like Vega Sicilia, the most famous producer in Spain.
Yes.
Is located in the Ribera del Duero, making their $500 bottles.
Yes.
There's a ton of Michelin restaurants attached to fancy wineries. It's all very beautiful and posh. It's the most Napa-esque spot in Spain. And gorgeous. It's a beautiful, beautiful spot.
Of course.
So you need to know Ribera del Duero.
All right.
Then I say for white wine, the area that you need to know the most is in Green Spain, in Galicia. It's an area that you referred to earlier, Rías Baixas. Baixas, because of the dialect and how they talk in that neck of the woods. Rías Baixas, right? That's where a lot of the great white wine from Spain is coming from now. That's another area. And Albarino. A lot of folks are familiar with Albarino, the grape variety. Rías Baixas, just north of Portugal and what they call Green Spain, because it rains a lot there. That's where that's one of the real places you need to know for white wine. Those are the three off the top of my head that are like the must know. And then of course there's tangents galore.
Of lots of them. So are there any emerging regions or hidden gems that we should be keeping our eye on? Oh, are you drinking Spanish wine just to make sure that you know what you're talking about?
I am drinking Spanish wine.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
I am drinking Spanish wine. Actually, Vega Sicilia's new Rioja project, it's amazing.
Ooh.
Super duper.
Vega Sicilia, well, that's good.
It's a little bit fancy, but not too fancy.
Well, we'll have to come and check it out.
The bottle's open.
While you still have some on the shelves.
So these adjunct areas, these new areas that are coming on, there's a bunch of them. The aforementioned Priorat. Priorat 30 years ago was non-existent. This was a desolate mountain area producing jug wine for the locals and for the local monastery. The Order of Scala Dei is very strong in this area. So they were
And the
producing jug
must
wine.
have, yeah, they must have their wine.
Oh, well, the story though is this area, the folks in this area were drinking the greatest jug wine ever. Because these old Grenache and Carignan vineyards produced wines of extreme quality that
Oh,
had
wow.
no distribution, no sourcing, no networking anywhere. So the locals are literally bringing 1 liter plastic jugs and getting $50 a bottle quality for like $5 a liter.
Oh, gosh.
Incredible, incredible. The most blown away I've ever been when I first visited the wine region in 1995, 96. There were wines there that I would gladly pay $50 a bottle for that they were selling for $5 a liter in jugs, direct from the winery. Like literally open the spigot into the jug, €5 out the door. It was incredible. I never seen anything like it.
Did you bring any of those home with you? Were you buying at that
I
time?
was not allowed. I talked to the winery at the time and I said, I would like to import this wine. And they said, oh, that wine's not for you.
Right.
That wine's for the locals. We wouldn't sell that wine to you. It's not good enough. And I'm like, trust me, it's good enough. And they were like, no, no, no. You have to buy this new wine, which we've aged in fancy French oak barrels for you, because that's what Americans want. And I was like,
Yeah, but I'm just a simple American, right? I don't mind, right?
they wouldn't sell it to me. I tried, and but Priorat nowadays, of course, makes wines that are $1,000 a bottle, $500 a
Yeah, sure.
bottle.
Of
The
course.
word's gotten out, and Priorat, but there's a whole slew of reasonably priced Priorat wines that are available in the market under $30, and they provide extreme value. So Priorat. Now, if you head northwest of Priorat into Catalonia, into Aragon, near the area Calatayud, this area kind of out in between. It's an in between type area, beautiful area, hilly area. This is where Grenache got its start, and the wines from
Okay.
this area, Calatayud, Campo de Borsao, Campo de Borja, Calatayud. These areas right here are producing
Yes.
some of the most compelling Grenache on the planet for no money.
Wow.
I sell some of these wines for $10, $12, $14 a bottle. They're sensational. And of course, in Spain they call Grenache garnacha, right?
All right.
So
Well,
it'll say
right.
garnacha on the label, and this is really the ground zero for great old vine Grenache on the planet. That's an area that's indispensable. It's a must know area for value.
So that's one of our questions is what should people look for when they're reading the labels on Spanish wines? Anything they should know about the designations? I think there are some designations for Spanish wines that are important to know. Is that true?
Well, in a couple areas, there are some designations, which used to be very important to know and are less important to know now, but still very relevant with regards to a couple brands. Now, in Rioja, they gained a little bit of their notoriety based on their designation of Crianza, Reserva, and Gran Reserva. So the whole concept of a reserve wine from the Napa Valley, this concept began in Italy and Spain. And Napa Valley adopted the concept of a reserve wine in America, back in the
Yes.
70s, with Robert Mondavi and these kind of guys, right, and reserve on their labels. But the whole concept started in places like Rioja, where you have Crianza, which is a level of Rioja indicating that the wine was aged for 1 year in barrel, and then 1 year in bottle, then released. The Reserva wines, the Reserva level, indicates the wine spent at least an extra year in barrel, and I believe an extra year in bottle before release. So the Reserva wines require, if not 3, maybe 4 years. It could be 2 and 1. I'm trying to remember. And then they have the Grand Reserva level, which requires probably a combined 6 years of aging before release. Now, these designations were created so that the producers in Rioja could put their top wines in these different levels of aging and produce a top wine at this level. If it was a Grand Reserva, you knew the best grapes went in there, huh? So important. You knew
You
the
would
best
think
grapes.
so. You
Yeah.
would think so.
Yeah, and the basic grapes went into the Crianza wine and so on. They did this in the Ribera del Duero as well, but it's not as relevant in the Ribera del Duero. Now, beyond that, what you need to look for is just the areas themselves. The bottles will say Calatayud or Jumilla or Rias Baixas or Penedès. They'll say the area. And those areas have certain grape varieties allowed in those areas. Just like in Italy with Chianti Classico, in France with Bordeaux, the same situations apply. apply. Although the Spanish tend to put the grape variety a little more on the labels. So it's a bit easier for us actually than some of the Italian and French nomenclature. How's that for
All
nerd?
right. Okay. Yep. Yep. So go back to the classifications. So I've seen the Reserva and the Gran Reserva. So is there someone who goes around and checks them all, or is there something that they have a standard that they have to produce by to earn that?
Yes and yes. First of all, the government will make sure that you are not overproducing a certain amount of wine at a certain quality level in your cellar. So the Spanish government, Italian government, French government, they all come and check. And if you have if you're in the cellar and you say, I make 10,000 bottles of Reserva, and you have like 30,000 bottles worth of Reserva in the barrel. Well, first of all, they're going to make sure, they're going to say, okay, but when you bottle that, you're only bottling 10,000. And what happens is, like in Rioja, you have to go to the board and get approval for the quantities. And then the board issues you stickers. A little sticker right there.
Oh, I see
That's a
that.
sticker.
Yes.
Every bottle of Rioja needs one. So if you went to them and said, hey, I made 10,000 bottles of Reserva, then you request 20,000 Reserva stickers.
Oh, no, no, no. No can do. Right.
So there is a bit of policing there. I wouldn't say it's extremely stringent, but the governing board wants their money because, of course, the producers pay for those stickers.
Sure.
And they're required. See where I'm getting at?
I do. So if someone wanted to make a great paella and throw a Spanish themed dinner party, what 2 or 3 bottles of wine would you suggest that they buy? Should it be from entry level to something showy? And which of those would be? What do you think?
Well, if you want to follow the tradition, paella, the origins of paella got its start in southeastern Spain, near the town of Valencia, near the city of Valencia.
Right.
That's the foundational home for paella. It has manifested out since then. But if you want to go hardcore, then I would pour a Monastrell, or a wine from either the Jumilla or Yecla areas of Spain. These are both areas in southeastern Spain that produce phenomenal value wines from the Monastrell or Mourvedre grape. And these are the wines that they traditionally drink with paella forever. So if you want to be true to form, you get something from the southeastern part of Spain, from Jumilla or Yecla or this area, and you drink that with your paella. Now, that being said, any red wine goes with paella. It is so good. And you can do anything. You can do Rioja, you can do Ribera del Duero, you can do pre-rot wines, you can do whatever you'd like with a paella. The dish itself is really flexible with a number of styles of red wine.
As often happens with red wine, it seems to be drinkable with a lot of different things. We just can't help it. It just happens that way, right?
Yeah. And a lot of the Spanish red wines have great drinkability. You know, the Spanish, from a European standpoint, they treasure drinkability. They treasure just being able to have more than a couple glasses. You know what I mean? Like they want to be in the wheelhouse and very enjoyable.
So that's a question that we have next is, what are good Spanish wines for casual sipping or for serious cellar picks?
For casual sipping, I'd send you back to that area we talked about earlier, Calatayud, the Grenache wines from that area, from Calatayud, from Aragon, from that neck of the woods in north central Spain. Those are the Grenache. Look for, old vine Grenache from Spain, and you'll be golden. Those are great wines. The Crianza style Riojas, which are like the entry level, the basic Rioja wines with that 1 year of aging, those wines can offer incredible value. And most of those are like between $12, $18 a bottle. They're sensational from the Tempranillo grape. Tempranillo is the main grape, by the way, in Rioja and Ribera del Duero. So those Tempranillos are fabulous. And then, of course, you can go to the southeast. Those Jumilla wines we just discussed. Your paella wines, those are great for everyday drinking. Delicious, juicy, fruit forward. And then for white wines, I think the best value for white wine right now is an area called Rueda, Rueda.
All right.
Rueda, Rueda. Now, this area, this is what the Spaniards drink all the time on a daily basis. The grape variety is Verdejo, Verdejo, Verdejo. And you'll see the grape variety on the bottle, Verdejo, and you also see the appellation, Rueda. And many of these wines are in that $10 to $20 price range and are crisp, bright, like Spain's answer to Sauvignon Blanc. And they deliver just this nice, bright, crunchy, juicy glass, mouthful of wine. Serve it cold, nice chill on it, and just it's for summertime, nothing better.
So if you have $20 to spend, do you buy Marjos from Bordeaux or do you buy a nice Spanish wine?
Unfair question.
Oh, okay.
Those are my children.
Yes.
Okay, here's the answer. Here's the answer I give
just became mine recently, so I've.
Here's the answer I'd give you. I would buy the Spanish wine for drinking now, and I would buy that Marjos for drinking later. Because even though the Marjos is an inexpensive bottle of wine, it is a classic Bordeaux in every respect, and will grow and develop with bottle age. So I'd kind of stash the Marjos for a few years. It doesn't need to be 10. He doesn't make that wine to be drunk in 10, 20 years, although could maybe. But I'd stash it for a few years and drink the Spanish wines in the meantime. That's what I would tell you to do.
Well, all right, we'll have to try that. So as this weather cools down, Kyle, how should we be thinking about changing what we drink? What's the right time to shift from the lighter wines to the heavier styles? Is there a time?
Mm-hmm. Well, in SoCal, it's a little less of a more obvious time.
Yeah.
It's Groundhog Day here, right?
Yes.
But we do tend to cool off. But the funny thing is, we tend to stay pretty warm through Thanksgiving. You know, I was talking with a friend of mine the other day. I can't remember a cold Thanksgiving. For some reason, the Santa Ana's come through. It's always warm. It always feels a bit windy.
Yes.
And so we almost make the switch like in December. And then when we make that switch is geared towards what's going to be on the Christmas table, which could be that crown roast. Some people do duck. Some people do the ham, you know, that classic ham. And it's very easy to segue into bolder, richer red wines. But the thing is, the lighter red wines still have that place. You know, the Christmas ham, you can do Cabernet, but I do so much love like Beaujolais or Grenache or, you know, these Rhone wines, Southern Rhone wines. I love there's a lot of lighter style reds that go in that scenario. But I know everyone's going to want their roasts. They're going to want their crown roasts. Then, yeah, Bordeaux and Cabernet's king. Break them out. This is time. Yeah, and the Northern Rhones, those Syrah-based Northern Rhones. This is a good time. I feel less compelled to drink Northern Rhone wines, those Syrah-based Northern Rhone wines, in the middle of summer. For some reason, it just doesn't feel, you know, where you eat with your hands.
Right. Yeah.
At Christmas time, those wines tend to pop a little more out of my cellar, personally.
Yep, absolutely. So what are some of your go-to fall favorites? Any Spanish whites or rosés that you'd still carry into the cooler months?
The Spanish whites, there's always a place for the Spanish whites because especially when you're cooking, right? I love the Spanish whites when you're having friends over for dinner, you're still sauteing, you're still working, everyone's in the kitchen. Those Spanish whites are perfect. I tell you, the bottles disappear.
So folks, you heard it here. If you're cooking, be sure you've got some Spanish whites in your kitchen.
And it's the perfect wine to drop a little bit in your dish, too. You know what I mean? These unoaked, crisp Spanish whites go great from a cooking standpoint. Sure. Yes. Little for the dish, a little more for you, little for the dish, a little more for you, you know, that sort of deal.
My mother-in-law did that.
Well, I do that. Of course.
So what's a name of a bottle we should have? Give us a sample.
Well, here's a wine I just got in recently that I completely fell in love with. Is an Albarino from a producer called Albamar. 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 And these guys do this classic, beautiful, crisp, floral style of Albarino that I adore. And the wine's around $25. So not crazy expensive. Not dirt cheap, but for the money, it's one of the best values on white wine around. And it's a wine that we've had on our machines here at the store for a few weeks. Everyone loves it. The wine's just beautiful. fine-tuned but juicy, giving, flexible. So for a white wine, something like that all day long. It's gorgeous. For the reds, I love drinking Rioja in winter. Rioja goes great with lamb. Like sometimes people do the lamb rack. I do rack of lamb probably every second or third Christmas. And Rioja goes brilliant with lamb. It is one of the perfect matches. It also goes great with ham because let's remember the Spanish ham culture, shall we?
Yes.
The greatest ham in the world, sorry, Italy, is produced in Spain. The jamón ibérico, Cinco Jotas ham, it's the best. And a lot of ham is consumed in Rioja, and a lot of Rioja is consumed with it. So I love drinking just the classic Rioja wines during Christmas. The Reservas, the Grand Reservas from a producer like Lopez de Heredia, or La Rioja Alta, or Muga, or even this guy. This guy's a bit young, but this is the Macan from Vega, Sicilia. This is gorgeous. This is great dinner table wine that you can treat like a Bordeaux, because the other partner, I don't know if you can read on there, is Benjamin the Rothschild from Chateau Lafite.
Ooh.
So like this wine is basically a partnering up of the Vega Sicilia people and Benjamin the Rothschild from Lafite Rothschild. So that's
We're
a wine you
making
can.
up new notes here during this program, by the way.
Yeah, because we're going to see you like probably in a couple hours or something. Just kidding.
Actually, about 3 or first thing in the morning, that's for sure.
Right. So, but that's a wine that like strikes the balance between Bordeaux and Spain. You can decant it. It has Bordeaux nuances, but also has classic Tempranillo Rioja nuances. I love this. I'm going to love this wine at the dinner table. Still trying to figure out when I'm cooking for Christmas, but I can guarantee you a wine like that will be on my dinner table.
Well, we'll have to make sure there's at least we leave 1 or 2 on the shelf for you to take home with you. So let's just clarify. So Rioja is the region, but the grape is Tempranillo?
Correct. And that applies towards 3 major areas in Spain: Rioja, Ribera del Duero. Tempranillo is also the main grape. And there's another area called Toro, Toro, like the bull, like Toro. And there, Tempranillo is the main grape variety as well. So these 3 areas, Tempranillo is the grape. Easy.
But yet you still tend to classify it as a Rioja. I don't hear you talk about Tempranillo as much as I hear you say Rioja.
Right. We almost never talk about grape variety in Europe, because in Europe, the tradition is to name the wines after the areas where they're growing. So you'll always have that. Very seldom do you have the grape variety obviously indicated on a label for a wine from a generally demarcated area in Europe. It does happen occasionally, Nebbiolo d'Alba, Barbera d'Alba, this sort of deal. But in general, when you think of any major, Bordeaux, there's no grape variety on it. Sancerre, the grape variety, Sancerre doesn't say Sauvignon Blanc, and it's the same in Spain.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So speaking of the seasons, are there any seasonal releases that we should be waiting for, or any special styles that we should seek out at any given time of year? And do we have the same harvest season as we do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, fall is a very important release season. A lot of the top wines, for example, from California, come out in fall. So all of your top Cabernet producers, guys like Opus One, for example, if you want something super posh, Opus One just got released last week. Wines like Quintessa and maybe Beringer Reserve, or these types of wines, a lot of them are released during the fall season, and a lot of it's based on space constraints. There's a lot of space constraints. So you got to get the next stuff out because the new stuff's coming in. Right. Fall is a critical time for releases in California and in Europe as well. But the French releases, the European releases, remember, they got to go on a boat, clear customs. A lot of the French releases we don't see until the winter. We'll see them in February instead of October. But here we see the California stuff right away. So a lot of big red wine releases, Napa, Cabernet. Traditionally, this is an important time for them.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I didn't think about coming on the boat. Yes, that's...
Yeah, right?
That's an issue. Yeah, I'm just saying everything flies over, but it's kind of a lot of wine for just an airplane. We need to have planes just designated for wine travel, right? So
there's some very special wines that end up on planes, like Beaujolais Nouveau and things like that. But
sure, yep, that's true. That's true. So if someone wants to stock up for the season, what should they grab now while it's still on the shelf? or should be waiting for something that's yet to come?
That's an interesting question because it's a funny time in the wine business. There's lots of opportunity. Uh,
And
there's
tell us about that.
Well, there's a huge production of wine in the last 10, 20 years. The production of wine has gone up and up and up and up, while demand has slightly subsided. So it creates a scenario where there's a lot of opportunity in the world of fine wine to steal great wines. There's a lot of great wine out there at great prices. So what you don't want to do is overpay for something. And what you do want to do is be ready to strike on a hot deal. Like for us, we're throwing so many hot deals out there right now. We have so many great $100 wines for $40, $70 wines
Wow.
for $30. There's a lot of action happening. So what I would say is pay special attention to like our daily email offers that we do from winex.com. On those offers, there's so much opportunity. All of us like a discount. We all go into the clothing stores and head to the rack in the back, and it's natural. And the wine business, for the first time probably in 10 years, the area and back with the great deals is quite sizable. So tons of opportunity, which we're happy as buyers and sellers too to have it. There's tons of opportunity. So instead of just one general release, it's more like, oh, this wine was 80, but now it's 50 because we have a bit too much of it, and it's a wine that would have been 50 before. You know what I mean? There's a lot of that happening.
So let's talk about that. Does that happen because people don't buy enough wine, or it just happens to be that season produced more wine? Is that
Mm.
how is it that you have these imbalances in quantity?
It's supply and demand. Supply and demand accentuated on a California level by heavy increase in prices over the last 10, 15 years. California's been a little more shameless in its pricing than I would say a lot of producers in Europe, who are a lot more practical and sustainable. So what we're seeing from California is a lot of $80 Pinot Noir that got into the market, for example. How much is your Pinot Noir? Oh, it's $80 from the winery. Okay, great. Well, why is it $80? Well, I only made 150 cases.
Oh.
Okay, great. Well, you and like 400 of your friends have all made 150 cases. So now there's 10,000 cases of $85 Pinot Noir in the market, and only 5,000 of it can be sold. So what happens? What happens? Squeaky wheel gets the grease. Something with the biggest score sells first. If you got the second biggest score, you might not sell as fast. And what that does, it creates opportunity in the marketplace. For these wines, essentially, get down to maybe a price level where they kind of should sell at. But because of the last, 30 years of kind of excessive vaulting price increases in California, which California will blame on a number of reasons, but the main contributor is just whose bottle is shinier. Keeping up with the Joneses. And so essentially what's happened is it's created a lot of opportunity for a lot of wines in California to rebrand themselves at that price. Unfortunately, they don't want to.
Right.
But if they want to sell, they got to do it, and that creates great opportunities for us and for you guys, because there's some capitulation in the market with regards to California wine. So this holiday season, I'd be looking for those fabulous $80 Cabernets that are $40 now. I'd be looking for those terrific $70 Pinots that are $30 now. And if you know where to look and how to look, like winex.com, you will find those opportunities, and that's where you should be. Keep your eyes out for that.
So let me ask you a question. Do the Spanish wines, the majority of those come to the United States? Do they sell them in Europe? Is there there must be some statistics about how much of their production goes to which markets.
Mm-hmm. Spain used to be almost non-existent in the market until the early 90s. Early mid 90s, Spain actually had a presence in the American marketplace. And now we are a major location for Spanish wines. But they distribute everywhere. There's huge production, right? Millions and millions of bottles of Rioja produced. It's a big area that makes a lot of great wine. So their export markets are just like anywhere else. Asia, the rest of Europe, Spain, South America is huge. So these wines do find the same export markets that the French find or the Italians find. So their brand is kind of spread out a little bit everywhere. And the super premium guys hook up with the cool kids selling their wines at the cool restaurants, whether it's in Stockholm, Sweden, or Rio de Janeiro. The internet and technology has made it so that all these wines are known about by a large group of people. It's not, back in the 90s, it was, oh, the new Robert Parker Wine Advocate magazine showed up. I'll thumb through it and see who's relevant.
Yeah.
Now, every brand is everywhere on multiple levels. So
Yeah.
essentially a phone call, from one country to another saying, I would love to sell, 50 cases of your Rioja here in Venezuela. I mean, bad example, but, and
Or
then,
here at the wine exchange.
yeah, and then they might say, yeah, let's do it. And it's simple. You make a phone call, you make it happen. So these wines do have broad market reach. A lot of these top producers, for sure, but a lot of them don't. Some are like the Burgundy guys. They sell, the 2 or 3 agents in 2 or 3 major markets, and that's all the wine they have. Because getting back to it, in Spain, some of these guys make 4 barrels. Some of these guys make 4 million bottles.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It's a big
incredible.
difference. So, what's your take on cellaring Spanish wines? What styles benefit? How long? And are there any drinking windows?
Mm. Well, in Rioja, for example, a lot of them make the wine accessible to you on release. They do a lot of the aging for you. That's why they hold these wines back
Oh,
6 years, 8 years, 10 years for the top
oh,
wines. So when they get to you, they're in a great place. But the thing with Rioja has this fabulous aging window because, we talk about with aging, we talk about bell curves. Like a wine will needs this time, then it reaches its apex and then it declines. With the Rioja wines, it's less of a bell curve and more of a plateau, like a long plateau, where I'll do this, kind of level out for a long time and then slowly decline.
and wait.
So
Yep.
the Rioja wines, you can age them 20 years, 25 years, no problem. Top Ribera del Duero wines, 20 years, no problem. Priorat, you have to be careful of. Drink those like Chateauneuf du Pape within 7 to 10 years, I'd say. And then the little wines, the inexpensive wines, drink those young. They're made purposely to be enjoyed young. So the aging windows on a lot of these great $10, $12 wines are 3 years, 4 years. I mean, drink them up, enjoy them for that feisty, fresh, juicy fruit that the Spanish sun kisses all of these grape varieties with. They're all eminently enjoyable when they're young, and that's kind of what I would tell you from an aging standpoint.
What are some of the common mistakes that people make when they're buying Spanish wines?
I would say, what are the mistakes? I would say it's more difficult to make mistakes with buying Spanish wines just because the value is so extreme. And
Oh,
we've been so careful with the products that have come into America. Spain's kind of been like diligently handpicked by a number of top importers over the
right.
last 20 years. So the mistakes are fewer. I would say one of the biggest things is don't let price figure too much into it. I would say in general, a lot of consumers think, oh, the wine's more expensive. So of course it's going to be better, right?
Right. Yeah. Of
Which is
course we
what
do.
California has trained this generation of drinkers to
Hmm.
think, oh, the $50 wine is bad, the $100 wine is better. So
Yes.
now some of that does happen in a few areas in Spain, just like anywhere else, especially the Ribera del Duero. Ribera del Duero there's a lot of expensive wine there. So I would say don't worry so much about the price, right? I would
Okay.
say you can easily cap yourself at, for the premium, like kick-ass wine, you can cap yourself at under $100 a bottle. Don't think that $300 bottle is a must-have, because in some areas that's not necessarily the case. So I'd say the biggest mistake is like just, oh, that $400 one, I'm going to grab that because it's better. No, it's not necessary. Not necessary.
Just so often friends call me, and not that I'm an expert in wines by any means, but I'm certainly maybe a little bit more knowledgeable than they are. And they'll say, I want to buy a nice bottle of wine from one of my clients. In a case like this, what do you say to them? How do you help people become educated about wines they should buy when when they're not that knowledgeable and they're just getting started, want to go buy a nice bottle for somebody?
A little research goes a long way. And you have the internet in front of you now, which is so amazing. So, you have to work with guys like us that are really diligent in what we choose and how we choose it. Then, from a stylistic standpoint, do a little research. And, the thing is, again, for gift giving, there's always this, okay, like I'll show them the $60 bottle, and they'll be like, no, that's not good enough. And it's like, no, this $60 bottle is good enough. No, I need to spend $130. okay, well, I can show you this, but this is like necessarily not any better than the $60 one, right?
Right.
I want to make customers happy, so I'll sell them a $130 bottle of wine all day long.
Of course.
Of course, that's my job, huh? I need to make everyone happy. But on the other side of that coin, it's not necessary. So think of Spain as like this potential value play for the holidays, where you can buy a $35, $40 bottle of Spanish wine, and it might taste like a $75 or $80 bottle of California wine, qualitatively. Plus, you kind of introduce somebody to something new, maybe something they haven't tried before. And all of a sudden they're like, man, I had a Rioja wine that you got for me for the holidays. That was amazing, huh? And that's how this process starts. And then if they want to look it up online and think that you cheapened out on them because you spent $60 instead of $90, that's their problem. It kind of gets away from the whole spirit of gift giving, I'd say.
Sure, of course, of course. And they can be sure and confident that the quality is the same or better than what they might buy, because they wouldn't go out and buy a $150 bottle of wine.
No.
So if they're looking for something a
Yeah.
lower budget, 25 to 40, 50,
Mhm.
they can do that in a Spanish wine.
Yep, yep. And not to mention the fact a lot of those more expensive ones, they're not necessarily drinkable that soon. Some of these $150 wines from some of these areas are made to be, they're quite oaky, 100% new oak, bells and whistles, require more bottle age. So if you're giving someone a gift and they're going to pop the cork on it like in 6 months, some of those wines are even like the wrong choice to do. Like I wouldn't necessarily give someone a gift of like a 2022 Bordeaux, from a big vintage that they're going to crack the cork tomorrow. I'd give them something a little bit of bottle age, like
Yep.
like a Rioja that's 10 years old is
Yeah.
perfect. Beautiful.
Yep. Yep. Sounds yummy to me.
Mhm.
So you travel so much. You've been so many places, met so many people all over the world. Do you have a memorable Spanish wine story? Either a producer, a vineyard?
Oh, so many. I get the luxury of going to Spain quite a bit. And I think one of the coolest visits I ever had, the thing with Rioja, we'll go back to Rioja, because Rioja is this place where these guys have the capability to produce 1 million bottles of something that is remarkable.
Yes.
I have not encountered this anywhere else on planet Earth. Most of these guys, produce, we made 400 cases, we made 500 cases, we made 1,000 cases. Rioja has the capability of making like 300,000 cases of something amazing.
Gosh.
And I've never seen it. So one of my best visits, I went to Cune.
Okay.
So they're called Cune. Here in America, they're called Cune, C-U-N-E, in Rioja. In Spain, it's C-V-N-E, Cooperativa Vinicola Norte de España. Now, they have two different wineries. And I went to their Viña Real winery, which is like the little more boutique-y one. And we had a tour of the winery, which is amazing. And we went into their storage area. And basically think like a whole airplane hangar.
Okay.
Roof to floor, bottles of this $40 Grand Reserva that is amazing. That gets like 95 points. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a known wine. And as far as the eye could see, there were bottles. And I looked at the guy, or actually it was a lady who was giving the tour. I'm like, is this all the same? And she's like, see? And that's when I got like, holy cow. I got like religion in that moment. Because knowing that very few spots in the world, if none, have the capability to produce a wine this refined, this elegant, and this quality at this price and this volume.
Right.
It is literally, no one else could do it. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, I got it. I'm drinking the water. There's no way I can't recommend these wines to people.
Yeah, you got religion for sure.
Because it's so much easier making 100 cases of something great. That's 4 barrels. You got 4 barrels in front of you, and you cut away the rest of the barrels, and you're like, this is great. Do that with 10,000 barrels.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Stunning. Absolutely stunning.
Stunning.
Impressive.
Was there an aha moment in your travels and your time with Spanish wines when you changed your perspective? Was that it? Was that the moment?
Well, no, I knew the wines were always good, but on the first trip, that I took in the 90s, that's when I got a real feel for, now on the other side of the coin, for example, these guys in Priorat with these vineyards, with these slopes, and the vines are just intermittently dying, and they're hand harvesting off of these black
I know.
slate soils
I know.
and
Yeah.
and working so hard
I know.
to
Incredible.
create something. Like completely different than Riojanos. Riojanos can make a million bottles of something, it's brilliant, it's easy. These guys in Priorat, I was like, oh, you poor, poor people. You know, like
Yeah.
it looked impossible, literally impossible, you know? And that's a different type of religion that you get. But then I knew at that juncture what the potential was. So even in the 90s, visiting these places, and you look at the terroir and you look at the soils and what they're doing, you knew the potential was incredible. And what Rioja, what Spain has done for the last 25, 30 years is slowly, carefully realize that potential. And that's impressive.
If you could drink only one Spanish wine for the rest of your life, it would be. Okay, if you could drink two.
Okay. Wow. Still, that makes it really, really tough. I have a lot of favorites in that realm. You know, I do go back to classic Rioja. I do love the old classic Rioja wines, and they age beautifully. So probably a Gran Reserva from somebody like Lopez de Heredia or La Rioja Alta or someone like that. A great classic Gran Reserva Rioja in a top year is unparalleled. It just delivers so much fun and joy and drinkability and complexity. And those are the wines we always blow away our top clients with. I mean, the people that buy hundreds of thousands of dollars of Bordeaux from us, we'll pour them a great old Gran Reserva Rioja, and they'll be like, what is this? And their minds will be blown every time. And we create new customers all the time. I think it's one of the great underrated genres of red wine in the world today. So that's probably where I'd head.
And do you keep it in your wine bar all the time?
Well, you know, we have a bunch of Rioja featured on the wine bar right now, actually. So for
Well,
the
there's
next,
another reason I need to come
yeah,
down.
yeah, we have a bunch of the classics featured on the wine bar right now. We always have at least one Rioja, I think, on the wine bar, just because it's important to us. And hey, end of the night, I might want half a glass of Rioja, huh? I just go to the bar and
You might have like something happening at home, like a water leak or something, and
like a
you need to have a bottle of wine.
like a catastrophic water leak. Wine, yeah, red wine goes great with catastrophic water leaks, Valerie. I'm just telling you.
I believe that's true. Kyle, as always, it is such a treat to have you here. You make wine feel like it's approachable, exciting, and your stories are just incredible. And that's exactly the way that it should be. So, for everyone listening, you can find Kyle and his team at the Wine Exchange in Santa Ana. Very easy to find off of the 55 freeway and Dyer Road. Or better yet, visit www.winex.com. You can buy anything online. They'll deliver it to you. They make it so easy for you to buy. And any questions, they can help you there also. You don't have to go to the store to buy from. In fact, some of my friends live far away and still order from Winex. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow SoCal with Val on your favorite podcast platform. Go to our YouTube channel and see all of the other episodes we've had with Kyle. And be sure you sign up for their newsletter because he has specials every single day. And the education you get, whether you're interested in buying it, it's fascinating to hear the stories and learn what you can learn from Kyle Meyer about wines and wine drinking. So until next time, here's to savoring life one glass at a time. Cheers and salute. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Kyle Meyer.